Hey guys, David here. If you're in Residency 3, you're probably watching this video, and just from all of us that are leading y'all and shepherding you, we believe in you, and we're so proud of every single one of you for the work you're putting in and the thought you're putting into your homework this week, and really throughout this whole residency process. You guys have killed it so far. We got a few weeks left, but as you're thinking through homework, and assessing both Puerto Rico and Montreal this week, we wanted to get a resource out to all of you at a reference on just how to maybe think through a little more clearly assessing each of your cities. And so I'm going to share my screen with you in just a moment, but on Sunday we walked through the target tool. And this tool is basically asking this question: how can I begin to think like a missionary? This is something that isn't just for the missionary, for the church planner, for the pastor, but it's for the Christian. And we're inviting you to consider making this a regular part of your walk with Jesus. Wherever you end up in life, we want to equip you with a tool that you can use as a reference on how to think like a missionary in reaching your city. So I'm going to share my screen with you. I have the target tool pulled up here for all of us to use. But last time we met on Sunday, we walked through the target tool, and we walked away with really three things. If we want to think like a missionary, there's really three things that we need clarity on. Number one, what's the culture of a city or a people group, if you want to call it that? What are the needs of the city? And finally, what's the gospel bridge? And we'll touch each of these in our time together, but let's start with culture. We talked through beliefs. Really, this is asking the question: what does this city believe about the world, about themselves, and about God? I mentioned, just as an example, I spent some time in China recently, and their belief system is atheistic or animistic. This is how they really view the world. Let's jump down to values. This is asking the question: what does this city value? Another way to say that is, what do they prioritize in their life, in their world, in their city, in their society, in their culture? Finally, on the culture side, what are their customs? Really, this is, how do they spend their time? Where do they live? Where do they work? Where do they play? How do they spend their life? Let's jump over to needs. Needs can be either spiritual or physical. And I think on a Sunday, I emphasized that spiritual lostness or spiritual blindness, or another way to say that is, they don't know Jesus. They haven't been saved. That is the number one need a person, a city, a people group will have, and the one that we ultimately want to address. This is what Jesus came to address, and that's what we're trying to address. But I don't think I touched on this. I would maybe expand this to include not just spiritual needs, but emotional needs and mental health needs. Let me take you back to East Asia. When we were there and we were driving into the city we were serving in, we came across a bridge that was basically overlooking this river. I forget what it's called, but there was actually an ambulance that was stationed off on the side of this bridge, and there was kind of a big to-do going on around the ambulance, but there weren't any cars around. And so our group, and we're just kind of like, what is going on here? But the guy who was leading our trip, he actually helped us realize, hey, that's probably someone who jumped. This is probably someone who committed suicide. And at that moment, we became aware, mental health and emotional health, in addition to, of course, spiritual health is a key need for people we were serving in East Asia. That's just one example, but this is prevalent. Y'all know this, but this is prevalent pretty much across any city nowadays. The other aspect to this is of course, physical needs. This is really compassion ministry. First Orlando does an amazing job loving our city in very tangible ways. But let me take you to the Bahamas. I was there in October of last year and really had the opportunity to serve alongside some amazing churches who were doing incredible work even after Hurricane Dorian came. And that's what we were there to do. We were there to do basically disaster relief for churches and for people in communities who were affected by the hurricane. But if I can take you back, I remember the first day that I drove through the city in a big white, 15 passenger van, just the utter devastation that was present in each of these cities I'd never seen before. I mean, houses just flattened, cars up on trees up on houses, families losing loved ones. I mean, just all sorts of things, just extremely traumatic. But this is just kind of a general idea of what I mean by physical needs. Finally, the gospel bridge. What I mean by this is really answering this question. How does the gospel address or speak into this culture and meet these needs? How does the gospel speak into this culture and meet these needs? This is really where we want your homework to eventually get. You all remember the funnel that Alec walked us through during Unique. That's a really bad funnel. I am so sorry. But all of this stuff, culture and needs, eventually gets us down to a gospel bridge, which is where we want to end up. Of all the things that we can serve, of all the things we can do in missions, what we must do for a city is identify how the gospel uniquely speaks to their current context. Just to give you an example, when I was in East Asia, like I said, the belief system there was atheistic and animistic. The values, what they prioritize, are family, education, career, hospitality, or government. Just the whole belief system was rooted in their values. How do they live their life? Most college students spent their time on the basketball court where we were serving, and that's where we met them. Spiritually, many of our college students we were serving struggle with anxiety and depression, even alcoholism, and there were a lot of emotional and mental health needs there. Physical needs, I mentioned the Bahamas. Actually, let me go back to East Asia. Right now, coronavirus, and just overall hygiene and health, masks, social distancing, those are all physical needs that they're experiencing on a level that they never have before. And so really the work here is identifying the culture and the needs. What we must do is identify how the gospel speaks into the culture and addresses those needs. So for this example, I would say, hey, you value Chinese students, you value your education, and you value a career path, and you value honoring your family. That's all great, but let me encourage you from the Bible, from Jesus, from the Christian worldview, that your worth is not in your work. You don't have to find your identity in that. You can find your identity in something else, and that's Jesus. Let me see here. For physical needs, let me take you to the Bahamas. These are people that experience trauma on an unprecedented level. Really, it's sharing the story of Jesus. You could even say Romans 8:28 would speak well into their current context. Hey, God doesn't cause all this stuff, but He does have the capacity and the character to turn and make all things good and all things new. And that's where all of this is heading. So those are just two quick examples, but our encouragement to you to be consider, hey, how does the gospel speak into the culture of Montreal? How does the gospel speak into the culture of Puerto Rico? How does the gospel meet and address the needs of Montreal and Puerto Rico? And then at that point, we've identified what we must do. And then you're thinking like a missionary. So I hope you find this helpful. Use it as a resource as you're thinking through your homework. And we'll see you all very soon. Okay. David out.